What's on, everyone? Jeremy here from the Quarter, and we're waking up to some good news, I guess. Yes, some good news, as Ukraine has finally agreed to a peace deal brokered by Donald J. Trump, the peacetime president. The president that has done more to stop wars than probably any other president in history in terms of the sheer number of wars ended. And this one is great. Obviously, the Israel Palestine one is over, sort of. It's over as far as I'm concerned. And now Ukraine, Russia. I really thought the Ukraine, Russia thing was going to get done a long time ago. But I think Zelensky just loved those billions of dollars coming in. And also the fact that he suspended elections meant that he knew once the war was over, he was going to get voted out. So he let tens of thousands of his countrymen pass away before agreeing to this. But again, that's not to excuse Russia, who's the one who invaded in the first place. But here you say, Ukraine has finally now agreed to Donald Trump's peace plan to end the war with Russia, according to a U.S. official. The Ukrainians have agreed to a peace deal. The official said there are some minor details to be sorted out, but they have agreed to the deal. The new agreement has been revised from 28 points to 19-point peace plan that no longer includes amnesty guarantees for atrocities committed during the war. Good. Kiev has agreed to cap its army at 800,000 men. I don't know why I would ever agree to cap my army at any size, but okay. It is less favorable to Moscow, leaving it up to Trump and the Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky to decide the most sensitive terms, including territorial disputes and U.S. security guarantees. Now, that last three words is my biggest concern. Okay. You give us your rare earth minerals, we'll give you some, we'll offer you some protection via that. But no, you cannot join NATO. No, I'm not going to fight any more wars for you. Like I fought Joe, I didn't fight it, but our sons and daughters fought Joe Biden's, absurd war for the past how many years? Billions of US dollars flowing over to Ukraine, hundreds of millions stolen, and embezzled by just about everybody in their government. And not to mention, obviously, the lives lost, which is the most important thing. Now, Vladimir Putin is expected to dismiss the New Deal out of hand, leading to longer drawn-out negotiations Trump has tried to avoid, sources in Washington said. Foreign Russian Minister Sergei Lavrov warned on Tuesday that the plan erased key understandings that Putin reached with Trump at the Alaska summit in August. The situation will be fundamentally different. The initial plan has permanently ruled out NATO membership for Ukraine, capped its army at 600,000. I thought it was 800,000. Okay. Proposed handing the rest of Donbass to Russia, albeit as a demilitarized zone, and mandated that Kiev hold elections within 100 days. This is obviously very negative for Zelensky. Within 100 days, Zelensky will be almost certainly voted out of power, which is why he extended the war for as long as he did. They lost the war. They were always going to lose this war. I empathize with their position. The Ukrainian people, I don't support Russia invading Ukraine, but also you have to define reality. They were never going to win this war without the United States fighting it for them, which we basically have been for the past 5 years. Now, all those clauses are reported to have since been amended or shelved for now. Zelensky confirmed that talks with Washington were ongoing in a post to X, adding, "I'm grateful for all of America's efforts and personally to President Trump's efforts." The Ukrainian president is expected to travel to the U.S. in the coming days to meet with Trump to finalize the agreement. Trump's special envoy, U.S. Army Secretary Dan Driscoll, met with Russian delegation in the UAE on Monday for secret talks. The meeting came after Driscoll's weekend talks with Ukraine in Geneva that were aimed with pushing peace forward, according to the deal. Trump galvanized his success in Gaza, ratcheting pressure on Zelensky last week to end the war, which has taken the life of 300,000 people since Putin launched his invasion in February 2022. again, here is Ukraine is being asked to give up the entire Donbas area here. It will be turned into a demilitarized zone, which I think is probably a fair thing. I don't know what you do with everyone that lives there. I don't know what that means. I'm not familiar with how demilitarized zones work. I know there's one between North Korea and South Korea, but I know there's about 1 billion landmines in it, and nobody lives there. America's European allies were reportedly left stunned that Trump had threatened to cut intelligence sharing and weapon supplies to press Zelensky into a deal. The U.S. put peace plan to Kiev at the end of last week and set a Thursday deadline for them to sign on the dotted line. Over the past week, the United States has made tremendous progress towards a peace deal by bringing both Ukraine and Russia to the table. White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt said, there are quite a few delicate but not insurmountable details that must be sorted out and will require further talks between Ukraine, Russia, and the United States. Lieutenant Colonel Jeffrey Tolbert, a U.S. Army spokesperson, said late Monday and throughout Tuesday, Secretary Driscoll and a team have been in discussions with Russian delegation to achieve lasting peace in Ukraine. The talks are going well and we remain optimistic. Secretary Driscoll is closely synchronized with the White House and the U.S. interagencies that these talks are in progress. You know, the ongoing negations occur amid the backdrop of brutal overnight bombings in Kiev, with Russian missiles raining destruction down on residential buildings. Moscow triggered death and terror with new attacks on civilians, taking the lives of 6, including an 86-year-old woman. Who cares that they're 86? That doesn't matter. Residents were heard screaming for help after the Iranian-designed Shahed drone ignited an inferno in the tower block, with 2 power plants supplying hot water to homes destroyed. I mean, the thing is here, do we have a ceasefire in place? I think obviously if you're firing missiles back and forth, I think that's probably not exactly helpful. You know, we saw this with Israel. Oopsies. We had to fire 6 more missiles into Palestine. Trust us. Reasons why. You just don't have, it's time for this war to end. Give up Donbas. I know that's obviously not going to be popular with the Ukrainians. I completely understand and respect why they would feel that way, but it's just, I don't know what else you do at this point. You just let the war go on and have another 2, 3, 400,000 people lose their lives. I think that with the Ukrainians agreeing to this deal, what it's going to do now is put pressure on Russia to end it. Right now, I think a lot of people are relatively neutral on this. I think most people think that this war has gone on too long. When Russia first invaded, I think just about everybody but the Russians were like, hey, that's not cool. But given the fact that Zelensky has had multiple chances to get out of this war over the past year and chose not to and kept the money flowing, people have grown very weary of President Zelensky. Now, I don't know any Ukrainians IRL, like in real life. I don't know what Ukrainians feel like in Ukraine about Zelensky. We'll find out in 100 days, when they have an election. The 19 points, we don't know exactly what they are, but instead the issue of territorial claims will be left to Trump and Zelensky to hammer out at a later date to people familiar. So that later date will probably be this week when he's set to be in the United States. Foreign Russian Ministry Sergei Lavrov, told reporters in Moscow the plan needed to keep key understandings. I'm sure that there will be some deals made. The new plan also eliminates a requirement that Ukraine give up any ambition to joining NATO, described by Putin as one of the root causes for his invasion. This is a concern. Again, the new plan eliminates a requirement that Ukraine give up any ambition of joining NATO. So we removed, now I guess you could say, so what does that really mean? They certainly can try to join NATO if they want. That doesn't mean they'll get in. That, doesn't mean that the United States won't stand strongly against that. And since the United States basically is NATO, I don't see them getting in. there's definitely some things I don't love about this, but the White House has previously pushed for Ukraine to sign the 28-point peace outline by Thanksgiving, though Trump claimed Saturday it did not constitute a final offer, while Secretary Marco Rubio said Sunday that the framework was a living, breathing document. What the main takeaway here, I think, is that, you know, we have finally some movement, perhaps some level of end in sight. But again, just last night, Russian air defenses destroyed 249 Ukrainian drones last night above various Russian regions and the occupied Crimea. The Russian Defense Ministry said Tuesday, noting that 116 of the drones were taken down over the Black Sea. It was the fourth largest Ukrainian drone attack on Russia, according to the Associated Press tally. Now, they're both still attacking each other. I really wish that we would have had some sort of a peace deal here. But I think what this does is, I believe, lets Trump walk away from this. If they don't want peace, I think Trump can walk away from it now. I really do. Cut off aid. Let Europe help them. If Europe is so worried about Russia, you know, moving past Ukraine into Europe, then they can deal with it. I'm sick of paying for it. The American people are sick of paying for it. We're done. End this stupid war. I hope you were informed by this video. If you were, please do leave a like on it. If you haven't yet, please subscribe or follow down below, and we'll talk to you again real soon.